Greetings, I'm Nolan Stoltz, the composer of the Route 66 suite. Right now we're driving eastbound in the 1928 to 52 alignment of Route 66, about to enter Glenrio, New Mexico. Glenrio is one of my favorite Route 66 ghost towns, definitely one that's inspiring the 66 ghost towns movement. Compared to other ghost towns along Route 66, information, photos, and video about Glenrio are widely available. In fact, I almost didn't do a video about it because it's so well documented. But there is one place in particular that hardly ever seems to be talked about, and that's the Cooper Hotel, so I'll cover that in a little bit. Glenrio is a ghost town on the border of New Mexico and Texas. The original plan for Glenrio was to reach as far west as about right here. There were plans for several cross streets. For example, 7th Street would have crossed about right here. This here is a plat map from 1907, and we're on New Mexico Avenue, just north of the former railroad tracks. The later alignment of 66 headed northwest from about where 6th Street was planned to be. I took that plat map and estimated where those roads were planned to be and drew them on this satellite photo. I have seen no evidence that these streets were ever built, except for State Street, which is County Road A and the New Mexico-Texas state line. I'm not sure what the population of Glenrio is today. I've seen one, but that doesn't seem correct because there are multiple buildings in the vicinity. In 1946, the population was reported as 84, but that would imply, 30 homes plus commercial buildings? So where do those people live? As you can see in this topographic map from 1968, it doesn't seem very populated. And notice that Route 66 hasn't bypassed the town yet, so one would think it would sustain the population or even grow. My guess is that the population number of 84 from 1946 may have included the area surrounding, like the ranches and such. I really don't know, and it's only speculation. On the left here, you'll see a gas station built in 1946, and behind it to the right is a house from 1910, the so-called Angel House. It was around that time, 1910, that Glenrio really got started. The railroad depot was built, a new town hall, and it reportedly grew to around 100 residents, so maybe there was 84 people living right here in 1946. On the left here, you're going to see a gas station dating back to 1925. It's just ruins now. Standing in front of that station here is Charlie Nixon. He was born here in Glenrio. He's pointing across the street, referencing the Cooper Hotel. Given when it was built, it would make sense if it was near the railroad. So if on the south side of the tracks, perhaps it was along that California Avenue. Or maybe it was on the north side of the tracks along New Mexico Avenue, or what became known as Route 66. And judging from where he is pointing, it seems like it would be somewhere around 1st Street. This is facing east, and you see State Street there. We pan to the south, and so somewhere around here would have been the Hotel Cooper. And pan back north towards that 1925 station. That still shot came from this DVD by Casey Kiefer and Nick Gerlich. It's titled Exit Zero Glenrio, Historic Route 66, and I highly recommend it. I bought it from the Texas Ivy Antiques in Amarillo, so a shout out to Dora Maroney there. She's super friendly, generous, and helpful. And on my way to Glenrio, I stopped at the Midpoint Cafe in Adrian to watch this DVD on my laptop before I got to Glenrio. Right? So a shout out to Brenda, who is always very friendly and generous. And you see him wearing my Midpoint Cafe t-shirt that day. Here's another look at the side of the Cooper Hotel, according to Charlie Nixon, that is. I didn't venture south of there because there is a house right there, right where that California Avenue was planned to be, or maybe actually was. And that brings me to my next point. I've read that the population of Glenrio is 1, and the sole resident lives behind one of the gas stations here. But what about that house? And the other buildings on the south side of Glenrio? It's still a ghost town, but perhaps not as small as it's usually made out to be. Before we get to the state line, let's look at a few more buildings on the left side of the road. We've got the post office on the left, and then the State Line Bar and Gas Station, and behind it, the State Line Motel. There are older pics of this place if you Google, and they're super easy to find. There's a sad story with this place. In 1973, one of the owners was stabbed to death by a customer. The gruesome tale is detailed in the book Murder and Mayhem on the Main Street of America, Tales from Bloody 66. If you Get it from Jim Hinckley himself, maybe he'll just sign it for you. And that concludes our tour of Glenrio, New Mexico. But now we've crossed into the Texas side of Glenrio, so we've got more to explore. This here is the last motel and cafe in Texas, for the westbound traveler. But for the eastbound traveler, it would be the first motel and cafe in Texas, as this sign barely says. Lots of broken glass. Place is in pretty rough shape. And it's sad. And, well, that's what I came out here to do, is experience 66, the good and the bad. And so I'll have to reflect the sadness in the music. And here's the motel portion of it. And what we'll do now is I'll take you around the property so we can have a look at the motel portion together. The sounds of a ghost town sometimes are just insects and wind and maybe parts of a building flapping against itself or something. Pretty quiet out here. Inside the rooms are pretty gross. I'm not going to take you in there, but if you're really curious, and I'm sure you can find a YouTube video somewhere that shows that, but we'll just continue along our trek. And we loop back to Route 66. Before we jump back in the car, let's take another look at the motel and cafe from the east side of town. So here's looking west down Route 66. On the left side of the road, we have a couple more buildings to look at. On the left is the Brownlee Diner, and on the right is a Texaco station built in 1950, also run by Joe Brownlee. You've probably seen these buildings before, and like the other buildings on the north side of the road, you can find pictures if you just Google. But the south side of the road doesn't get nearly as much attention. For instance, on this 1968 map, you see Roadside Park. So this is looking west with the Brownlee Diner and gas station on the right. Roadside Park was on the left. This park was welcoming eastbound travelers into Texas. And so here we have this welcome center. If you Google, you'll find several images of this place. That concludes our tour of Glenrio. I'll do another video that heads westbound through Glenrio and shows the post-1952 alignment as well as the early alignment to the ghost town of Endy. To get that, subscribe at patreon.com/Route66Suite.